stands the wreckful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays. O fearful meditation, where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back? Or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? Oh, none, unless this miracle have might, that in black ink my love may still shine bright.
Actually, let's just read through a whole bunch of these, and then we'll come back and look at them more closely.
Okay.
All right, I'll read the next one, Sonnet 64. When I have seen, by time's fell hand defaced, the rich, proud cost of outworn, buried age, when sometime lofty towers I see down raised, and brass eternal, slave to mortal rage, when I have seen the hungry ocean gain advantage on the kingdom of the shore, and the firm soil win of the watery main, increasing store with loss, and loss with store, when I have seen such interchange of state, or state itself confounded to decay, ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, that time will come and take my love away. This thought is as a death, which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose.
I'll read the next one.
Go for it.
No, time, thou shalt not boast that I do change. Thy pyramids built up with newer might, to me are nothing novel, nothing strange. They are but dressings of a former sight. Our dates are brief, and therefore we admire what thou dost foist upon us that is old, and rather make them born to what desire, than think that we before have heard them told. Thy registers and thee I both defy, not wondering at the present nor the past, for thy records and what we see doth lie, made more or less by thy continual haste. This I do vow, and this shall ever be, I will be true despite thy skiff and thee.
Dash, you want to take the next one?
All right, should I take 5 or 12?
5.
These hours that with gentle work did frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell, will play the tyrants to the very same, that unfair which fairly does. For never resting time leads summer on to hideous winter and confounds him there. Sap checked with frost and lusty leaves gone, quite gone, beauty o'ersnowed, and barrenness very bare. Then were not summer's distillation left, a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass? Beauty's effect with beauty were bereft, nor it, nor remembrance what it was, but flowers distilled through thy with winter. No, but flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, least but their show, their substance still is sweet.
All right, I'm going to jump in and read this next one. Sonnet 15. When I consider everything that grows holds in perfection but a little moment, that this huge stage presenteth naught but shows, whereon the stars in secret influence comment. when I perceive that men, as plants increase, cheered and checked even by the self-same sky, vaunt in their youthful sap, at height decrease, and wear their brave state out of memory. Then the conceit of this inconstant stay sets you, most rich in youth, before my sight, where wasteful time debateth with decay to change your day of youth to sullied night. And all in war with time for love of you, as he takes from you, I engraft you new.
Shall I read Sonnet 60?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Like as the waves make towards the pebbled shore, so do our minutes hasten to their end. Each changing place with that which goes before, in sequent toil all forwards do contend. Nativity, once in the main of light, crawls to maturity, wherewith being crowned, crooked eclipses against his glory fight, and time, that gave, doth now his gift confound. Time doth transfix the flourish set on youth, and delves the parallels in beauty's brow, feeds on the rarities of nature's truth, and nothing stands but for his skith to mow. And yet to times in hope my verse shall stand, praising thy worth despite his cruel hand.
Okay. Sonnet 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white, when lofty trees I see barren of leaves, while erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly bread, then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing 'gainst time's skith can make defense, save greed to brave him when he takes thee hence.
And I've put Sonnet 123 in there twice by accident.
Can I read Sonnet 19?
Yep, go for it.
Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and turn the long-lived phoenix to their blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou pleadest, and do whate'er thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine empty pen. Him in thy course untainted to allow for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, O time, despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse ever young.
Sonnet 115. Those lines that I before have writ do lie, even those that said I could not love you dearer. Yet then my judgment knew no reason why my most full flame should afterwards burn clearer. But reckoning time, whose millioned accidents creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings, tan sacred beauty, blunt the sharp's intents, divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Alas, why, fearing of time's tyranny, might I not then say, now I love you best? When I was certain or in certainty, crowning the present, doubting of the rest. Love is a babe, then might I not say so, to give full growth to that which still doth grow.
That's nice.
So I guess I kind of just picked all these because they all had something to do with time. I mean, there's obviously hundreds of places where Shakespeare discusses time. Actually, in those playing Shakespeare workshops, they show this funny clip of a supposed, I don't know, it's like a mock acting class where they're talking about this word time, and it's capital T, and why did Shakespeare give it a capital T, and it's a pretty funny, goofy little thing that they do. But yeah, it is something that Shakespeare, I don't know, you could say he's obsessed about it, but obviously is extremely aware of. And actually, one thing that, like in this very last, this sonnet 115, he says, it's reckoning time whose millioned accidents creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings. It's like so, I don't know, I think part of it, as we've discussed with its plays and things, like the conditions that existed in England at the time, like things that you thought were certain all of a sudden kind of get thrown on their head, and
Right.
These decrees of the kings, and it's just, you get a sense of all the uncertainty, but then a sense of a commitment to try and stay true and try and, like in a lot of these, he's talking about making sure that time doesn't destroy his love, and that, this hope that in his black ink, in his writings, that he can make this thing live on. In particular, like Sonnet 65, I think is really awesome, because he says, time, it's brass, not stone, not earth, not the sea, nothing can stick around. Like all these things, time will do damage to them. And he says, so then what chance has beauty got? What chance has beauty got? And then he says, rocks impregnable. Rocks that were impregnable are not so stout. They get destroyed by time. He says, gates of steel, right? It's steel. Steel is like so strong, but yet time can decay steel. So beauty, it's got the strength of a flower, so it doesn't stand a chance. But he says, well, maybe my black ink can help this thing, beat time in a sense. But yeah, so I thought we can look at some of these, and I guess the other thing, I sent out the email about asking if people do want to work on sonnets with the intention of eventually working with Robert on them.
Yeah, I'm for it.
So and yeah, we can rein Robert in. He's actually been working with this group out in California, an actual theater group, where they brought him in to teach Shakespeare and work with these students. And so because of all the work he had done with us on the sonnets, he decided, okay, I'll come and work with them, but I'm going to make them work on the sonnets. And then they're, I think, going to do Julius Caesar sometime later this year. But he wanted to really kind of challenge them and hone their Shakespeare skills on the sonnets, just because of the sonnet structure, but also the way that Shakespeare deals with it, because so many of these sonnets start mid-sentence or mid-argument or mid-thought, I guess you could say. It's almost like there's been this whole discussion, like the one that starts, "No time, thou shalt not boast that I do change." It's like he's already been having this whole argument with time, but which you don't hear, you don't see beforehand. The sonnet just kind of launches at the middle.
Yeah.
And, Roberts described it as, it's like trying to jump up onto a table. And he said, but you're flat-footed and you're standing next to the table and you got to jump up and jump on it. He says you can't start a sonnet like that. You need the running start. You need to figure out, or at least have, in your mind, the monologue, the internal dialogue in the head that's gone on, that then forces these words to come out. So you have to have that lead up. So you're running and jumping onto the table is much, you're not starting from a flat-footed just jumping up. You've got this running start, and so you've got to figure out what becomes before the sonnet starts. But then he does the same thing throughout the sonnets, because they are just so dense in content that they don't waffle on anywhere. And in a lot of cases, instead of waffling on, they're like, telling you even less than you really need a lot of times. So again, it's, you got to figure out that internal dialogue that's taking place. And, he's very strict. I can't remember how much we've discussed the sonnet structures before.
I don't think we did.
Okay. Okay, well then let me just see what people know about the structure. What have you noticed about the structure? Or maybe you haven't noticed the structure at all. That's fine.
There are like 14 lines in all of them.
Yep. What about, do you notice anything in terms of a rhyming structure?
Well, the last two lines seem to resolve the whole thing, and I guess you get that too in his plays sometimes.
Yeah.
For some reason, your mind starts rhyming at that very part.
Yeah, a lot of times it's called a rhyming couplet. So it's two lines, and the ends of the lines rhyme. So like in the first one, oh none, unless this miracle have might, that in black ink my love may still shine bright. And yeah, he usually, or most of the time, ends a scene with a rhyming couplet. Or, someone might have some serious monologue going on in the scene, and then he'll end his monologue with a rhyming couplet. So it's got a very, it's like the end of a piece of music. It's bringing it into a resolution. So there's definitely a rhyming couplet. So what else? So you've got the rhyming couplet. So that leaves 12 other lines. So let's look at 65, and let's look at the rhyming scheme there.
Yeah, every other line rhymes with every other line.
Yeah, so the first and the third, and then the second and the fourth.
Yeah.
But then it changes, right? So then it repeats. But it's a new. So then it's out and stout. So you got line 1 and 3, 2 and 4, and then 5 and 7, 6 and 8. So it's broken down into 3 what you call quatrains. So 3 series of 4 lines. And a good example where you can see that, well, maybe not. If you look at Sonnet 64, he uses a lot of whens in Sonnet 64. Each of the quatrains starts with when.
Yeah.
In Sonnet 64. He does a similar thing in Sonnet 15. So the first quatrain starts with when I consider. The second quatrain is when I perceive. And then the third quatrain is then. So when, then, this is what happens.
Yeah. Which one was this?
15.
15. Oh, great.
And so Shakespeare sticks to the rhyming schemes, he sticks to the structure, but he's someone that in terms of sonnets that I've seen that really kind of sticks to the three quatrains. In terms of them each almost being able to stand on their own, but like all being a development on what came beforehand. And usually, I mean, there are sonnets where the thoughts and things will just flow one quatrain through to the other, but in a lot of cases, it's like, for example, let's look at Sonnet 123. You guys all have that?
Yeah.
So the first quatrain, no time, thou shalt not boast that I do change. Thy pyramids built up with newer might, to me are nothing novel, nothing strange, they are but dressings of a former sight. And then it switches. Our dates are brief, and therefore we admire what thou dost foist upon us that is old, and rather make them born to our desire, than think that we before have heard them told. And then it completely switches, because then he comes out and he says, thy registers and thee I both defy. So they're kind of little packages. Was that Dash?
You're talking about the rhythm. You're talking about the rhythm?
No, more so the content, the actual thoughts that are being put out.
Oh, okay.
So they're like little packages, each in themselves. So they're different. The first one is just no time, thou shalt not boast that I do change, and here's why. Your pyramids, they're nothing new, they're nothing novel, they're just dressings of a former sight. So whatever. I'm not gonna. You can bugger off, kind of thing, right? He's telling time to kind of go jump, right? But then he switches and it's more reflective, right? And he's just talking about our dates are brief, and therefore we admire what thou dost foist upon us that is old. And so it has a different tune to it. It's a different melody. And then the third quatrain comes in and it's different again. It's shifted key. Right, and he's coming in and he's saying, you know what, time, your registers, your records, right, your history, and you, I both defy.
Yeah, first he's annoyed, then he reflects, and then he just defies the whole.
Yeah, then he just kind of launches. It's like, and then the couplet comes in and usually ties the whole thing together, or in a lot of cases comes and turns the whole thing on its head. So there's a differentiation that exists between each of the quatrains and then the couplet. And so that's something to kind of be conscious of and look out for when investigating the sonnets. Let's have a look at another one here in terms of the.
What does give mean? Like the last line of Sonnet 123. It's also called another sonnet. That is give and thee.
Yeah, I sometimes say scythe, but it's like death, and he's little it's not an axe, but it's a skip, a scythe. It's like a well, you would use to cut grass, not to cut grass, like if you're an old style of farming.
That's a sickle.
A sickle, yeah, that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, like death's sickle. I guess you'd say death has the sickle.
Cut hay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so they're pretty much the same. Yeah, scythe, a scythe, and a sickle. Yeah, he does. He uses that a few times. And there are a lot of sonnets, like I pointed out in this sonnet. Well, there's several sonnets here that start with the word when. And it's a funny way to start a sentence. If you walked up to someone and said, when you go out today, when you go to the store, when you go to this aisle, there's something that's got to come after that when. You can't just keep saying to someone, when you do this, when you do that, when. There's a certain point you have to say what you're actually after. So, when you go out today, when you go to the store, then get me a carton of milk. So Shakespeare often uses this in his sonnets. So if you look at sonnet 64 and 15 that are there side by side on the sheet that I gave you, every quatrain starts in sonnet 64's case. Every almost second line starts with the word when. So you get this sense that it's just building and building and building, and you're just waiting for this resolution to come. And in sonnet 64, the resolution is, now let's read it again, right? When I have seen by time's fell hand defaced the rich, proud cost of outworn, buried age. It's obviously not a finished thought. You're like, okay, what happens when that, what happens when you see that? He says, when sometime lofty towers I see down raised, and brass eternal slave to mortal rage. When I have seen the hungry ocean gain advantage on the kingdom of the shore, and the firm soil win of the watery main, increasing store with loss and loss with store, he still hasn't got to any kind of resolution. You're still wondering, okay, what happens when you see these things? When I have seen such interchange of state, or state itself confounded to decay. And then here it comes, right? It's like, okay, when I see this, when I see that, when I think of this, when I've seen such interchange of state, ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, that time will come and take my love away. Right, so he uses these whens to build and build and build and build, and then you're waiting for that other thing to come in. And he's like, when this happens, then ruin, right, because that's everything I've seen. All of these are examples of ruin from time. Ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, that time will come and take my love away, and there's nothing I can do about it. And then he says, and then you get a sense, okay, well, what's your opinion on this, right? So when I see all these things, this is what it teaches me. It teaches me that time is going to come. And then he lets you know, this thought is as a death, which cannot choose but weep, to have that which it fears to lose. And so in that final couplet, you really get a sense of how devastating these thoughts are to him. And he does a similar thing in Sonnet 15, right? It's this when, then. This change comes in. It's really interesting. When you look through a sonnet book, or actually a lot of sonnet books, in the back of the book will give you the first line of every sonnet. And if you have a look, you'll just see how many sonnets start with the word when. 2, 4, 6, 8, at least 10 of them. And it'll just have this similar structure. When, then. Something else happens.
Also, when and then are words that refer to time as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're all about time.
Yeah, it's also interesting the different adjectives he uses days, never resting time. Then there's time, life, devouring time, swift-footed time, old time, reckoning time,
Wasteful time.
wasteful time, time's tyranny. And in sonnet 5, even hours, the second word, even hours is in capital. So that's another thing that caught my eye, all these adjectives to time.
Yep. Yeah, and it's all, for the most part, it's this sense that time is just this destructive force. However, well, let me correct that, because for the most part, yeah, he is saying, it's time as this destructive force, but then you also have this sense that, like in Sonnet 5, right, because he says those hours, referring to time, right, so those hours that with gentle work did frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell. So time, in this sense, it's because of time that this, there's been this gentle work that's created this beautiful thing that everyone is looking at right now. But then he's saying that those hours will play the tyrants to the very same. And that unfair, which fairly doth excel. So, it fairly and gently and, these hours created this beautiful thing. But those same hours that created that beautiful thing, those hours are going to continue and they're going to destroy that beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So there's this paradox of time that he's constantly fighting with. In one of the other sonnets, he says, where, in 65, he says, where, alack, shall time's best jewel, talking about beauty, from time's chest lie hid. So, it's beauty is being created by time, but it's also being destroyed by time. And, for the most part, he leans much towards, the death and destruction of time, but he does also acknowledge that there is, that time has obviously played a role in developing these beautiful things as well. And
time creates and time destroys.
Yeah. Yes. Very powerful. So in terms of, if we go back to the structure here, so yeah, you have, a sonnet is 14 lines, 3 quatrains, quatrain being 4 lines, so 3 lots of 4 lines, and then a rhyming couplet to finish it off. And of course a rhyming scheme where inside of each quatrain, every second line rhymes with one another. Now the other thing that with the quatrain is that it is written in Iambic pentameter. So if you look at each line, I want you to count the number of syllables per line.
I'm not going to say anything because I already know.
Good, you should know, Dash. What'd you say, Avneet?
I don't. I'm not very clear on
syllables.
Pentameter. How does it work?
Okay, well, your syllables, if we look at that first sonnet 65, since brass nor stone nor earth nor boundless sea. So obviously your syllable is your, how do you describe a syllable? The, I don't know, the building block of a word. Actually, what is the description of a syllable? A unit of organization for a sequence of speech sounds. Any one of the parts into which a word is naturally divided when it's pronounced. So the word since is just a single syllable, whereas the word boundless is 2 syllables. Mortality is 4 syllables. Beauty, 2 syllables. So since brass, they're both single, or what you call a monosyllabic, so it's just a single syllable. So if you count the number of syllables there, since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea. How many syllables is that?
10.
Yes. All right, let's look at the next line. But sad mortality or sways their power. Now, that's a tricky one because power. And then you've got or sways, over sways. And this is where you'll begin to understand why Shakespeare, like in a lot of times we come across the, instead of saying it is,
Yeah.
or obviously here, like over sways, he drops it to or sways.
Yeah. The second line has 10 syllables.
Yes. Now, in that, you would say that the word power, they would describe that maybe as a feminine ending instead of power. Because it could almost be classed as another syllable, but it depends on the pronunciation. And this is where there's a lot of words like the word heaven, or heaven. So sometimes they're just a single syllable word. And there's a few words that Shakespeare uses that we today would think would be 2 syllables, but he pretty much always uses them in a single syllable context. So then this third line, how with this rage shall beauty hold our plea? Right, again, 10 syllables. So, iambic pentameter, what does pent mean?
5.
5, right? So, an iamb is a unstressed stress. So it's a da-dum. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. It's the way that you stress the word. So since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad mortality or sways their power, how with this rage shall beauty hold a plea, whose action is no stronger than a flower. So the iamb it's a style of rhythm. There's different ones. I can't think of any of their names right now, but there's actually Kepler talks about them in Book 4 of Harmonies. There's these different rhythms. So it's 5. So an iamb, and they call them feet in terms of meter, right? The meter is measured in feet. So you're looking at iambic pentameter. So 5 iambs per line. So each of your iamb is your da-dum. So that's your 2 syllables, da-dum. So 5 of them, which equals 10 syllables. And the majority of Shakespeare's work is written in iambic pentameter. Not all of it, but the majority of it.
Right.
And then in his later plays, one of the interesting things about Richard III, when we start that, I'll point out the way Shakespeare's using the iambic, because he's very strict on it in that play. In his later plays, in Macbeth and different things like that, he begins to really break out of it, and instead of having 10 syllables per line, he'll have 13, and then 15, and then it'll kind of vary a lot more. And a lot of times it varies based on the intensity of the scene. Oh no. Yeah. Sorry, I'm back. My internet connection died.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not used a whole lot today, is it? Iambic. There's an interesting American playwright named Maxwell Anderson who tried to write. Well, he did. He wrote a bunch of plays in Iambic.
Is he good?
I have a copy. I have a book of Anderson's plays. Actually, and he's a really interesting character because he also wrote a play about Socrates.
Really?
Yeah, and it's called Barefoot in Athens, I think.
Have you read?
Barefoot in Athens. It's about Socrates walking around with no shoes on. No. Yeah, it is pretty good. I've read Night Over Taos, and it's a very powerful play. And he also wrote a play. I can't think of the name of it, but it's basically the same story as Schiller's Mary Stuart. So it's the whole story of Mary Stuart and Elizabeth I of England. And Anderson's gives more of the intrigue side of things, more of the backstory, and the basically how Elizabeth I kind of set Mary Stuart up in terms of who she married initially, and kind of helped destroy her situation in Scotland. So yeah, Anderson's very interesting. So you can see that he's influenced by people like Schiller and obviously Shakespeare. The fact that he fights to bring Iambic back to the theaters, because I think Anderson. Let me just look what time period. Yeah, so he died in 1959.
Oh, okay.
So he's much more of not modern, but
Right.
yeah, he's yeah. So 1959, American playwright. But yeah, so Iambic, it's it's not used a whole lot. But it's one of the things that I think Daniel sent it around a bunch and people have looked at it. This guy Ben Crystal, is one of the points that he keeps trying to make to a lot of people is the point Robert makes is that you got to understand through understanding the structure that Shakespeare is writing in, you can get all of the stage directions and notes that you need in terms of figuring out how to actually portray his characters. So when it comes particularly from a standpoint of trying to act these plays and these sonnets and things, that the iambic pentameter really is your tool. And one thing I'll just point out is that Shakespeare, he sets up this rhythm in this iambic pentameter, but the thing that is so great about Shakespeare is that he sets that rhythm up so that he can break it. And it's when he breaks it that is most important. And that's why something that's interesting about these sonnets that start with the word when is that in a sense, well, you can say when or when I, or when I. And in these senses, the when is important. So it's not when I have seen by times fell hand defaced. It's when I have seen by times fell hand defaced. And in the case of that sonnet 64, when he gets to that point where he's changing, where it's like when, and you're like, okay, what? Then he comes out and he says ruin, and ruin is you're not saying ruin.
Right.
It's not ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate. It's ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, right? So he's breaking that meter that he has established throughout the whole sonnet structure. And so it's that break in the rhythm is what the mind picks up. And that's where the musicality of these things comes in. So it's like the dump, the dump, the dump, the dump, dump, dump. You're like, whoa, what just happened? Hang on a minute, that was important. And so yeah, you've got these words, but you have this music that is in this meter that the mind is responding to. And that's why it's not... And it becomes a very fascinating investigation when you actually try to present these sonnets, because a lot of times one of our things that we try to do when we want to emphasize a word, it's you just get really loud on a word, or you just like emphasize it really, really hardly. But Robert's always made the point that you need a leap in your register, so you need to go up, not loud, or not, you don't just hammer on this word, but what the mind will pick up is these register changes. So you have the rhythms, ba bump, ba bump, ba bump, ba bump, 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 that the mind will hear, but it's also the shifts in vocal register that the mind will respond to. So yeah, it's a very fascinating thing that if people, as I said, if people want to pick sonnets and start memorizing them, and then we can schedule throughout the week whenever it works with people's schedule. I can get on and work with people for half an hour, 45 minutes, and we can just work these things through to a point that then we can actually get on with Robert and and work with him on these sonnets. And
that's interesting. I'm up for that.
It's a lot of fun. Although I must say, when we first started working on sonnets, it was fun. But then I remember the very, very first time, Robert's like, "Do you realize that this sonnet rhymes?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I need to hear it." I'm like, "I hate things that rhyme." And actually, that's another interesting thing about the Iambic, because a lot of people at the time of Shakespeare, they're writing in Iambic. Actually, Christopher Marlowe was the one that really developed what Shakespeare became famous for in terms of what's called blank verse.
I've heard that.
Because a lot of people, they were writing in this meter, but every line rhymed. And
what is blank verse again? Is it just the same quatrain, or
just in terms of Iambic?
What is it generally?
Well, when you're writing in Iambic, see, that's where it's a sonnet that creates that structure of the quatrains.
Okay.
But if you're just writing in Iambic, you can write it in any form. You can write an epic poem like Chapman's Homer is in. No, Chapman's the Iliad, not the Odyssey. No. I think the Odyssey, one of them's in Iambic pentameter, and the other one's in like an Iambic septameter, I think. But it's an epic poem, so it's just, it's just non-stop. There's no verse there's no, quatrains and stuff in it. And so yeah, when Shakespeare writes these plays, it's just Iambic pentameter, for as long as the character's speaking. It doesn't have quatrains in it. It's not structured in that way. But yeah, so people were using Iambic.
No, but what's blank verse?
Oh, blank verse is just when it doesn't rhyme.
Oh, okay.
And that was something that at the time was kind of considered uncool. You couldn't do that. That was not, like, you couldn't be classed as a poet or a playwright if you were not rhyming your words.
Right.
And that's, I think, where Marlowe started using blank verse, and then Shakespeare really kind of took it. Obviously Marlowe was killed, so Shakespeare was left to really just use this blank verse. And it's interesting because, a bunch of Shakespeare's plays were rewritten by a guy by the name of Dryden and a few different people. And in some cases, one of the things they did is they just rewrote the plays, but they made them rhyme. Made the words rhyme. And it just, I don't know, it's one of those, I have difficulty with the rhyming stuff, because you get so trapped in making it rhyme that you ignore what's being said, and all you hear is the rhymes at the end of the lines. And that's why when I started working on sonnets, I just tried to stay away from rhyme as much as possible. And the first time I got up and worked with Robert, he kicked my ass. He's like, look, there's a reason why Shakespeare took the time to make it rhyme, so maybe you want to figure it out.
What'd you say?
There's a reason to the rhyme?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's figuring out how to use it in a correct way.
The nice thing about the quatrains is that they take the edge off of the rhyming by having it every other line.
Yeah.
The rhyme is still present, but it sounds less like artificial as opposed to like rhyming every 2 lines.
Yep.
Rhyme, which often, sounds really, because people generally don't talk that, but rhyming is actually quite common in language, and the structure of the quatrains and the sonnets actually brings a natural quality to the rhyming.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that, and in particular with the blank verse, because, people, they're writing in rhyme, but, it can so easily become artificial that it becomes difficult when, watching a play that's just in rhyme, like everything's just rhyming, and I find this with a lot of the, when I've actually seen some of Shakespeare's comedies performed, they tend to have this kind of slapstick quality to them. Just in terms of the way that they get presented, and the characters become artificial. They become slapstick figures on the stage. They don't become real thinking, feeling human beings that you can actually empathize with. And I think one of the crucial things with the blank verse was that intention was to make it more real for people, right? We're not just here to entertain you and keep you occupied for a couple of hours and make you laugh. We want to move you. We want to give you insight into, some of the misery that other people are experiencing in their lives, or some of the joy and laughter, but we want you to feel what these characters are feeling. We don't want you to be removed from it. We want you to be to actually feel the emotions of these characters and to be moved by it. And I think the blank verse just makes it removes that barrier. It makes it so much easier for to move your audience and to take away this level of entertainment, because so much of theater at the time it was just pure entertainment. I think I've mentioned before how at the end of these plays, even some of the most serious plays of Shakespeare, they had to be this, what they called a jig at the very end, where the clowns come out and they do a little dance, and, everything's just fun and games at the end.
I can imagine doing that after Hamlet.
Yep. So yeah, it's interesting. That's part of this whole blank verse thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sonnet, so it's iambic pentameter, 3 quatrains, a rhyming couplet, every second line rhymes, and then the rhyming couplet, both lines rhyme. It's very fun. But yeah, let's pick, does anyone have a favorite sonnet out of the ones we looked at there that we want to look at a little bit more in depth?
I'd like to look at the second page, all the 3 sonnets on the second page again.
All right.
I'll read sonnet 12.
Go for it.
When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white. When lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard. Then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties to themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defense, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence.
Alright, so what's he saying is going to defend against time?
Beauty?
Did you hear what Dash said?
Oh.
What did you say, Dash? Breeding. Alright, that's what he says there in that last line. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defense except breed. To brave him when he takes thee hence. This is Sonnet 12. It's part of the earlier sonnets, well, at least based on how they're published. But it is thought that the early sonnets there were actually written for the Earl of Southampton, trying to convince him that he should marry and have children.
Right.
But to have children so that his beauty can live on in his offspring. But the only thing that will outlive time is the only way you can outlive time is by breeding. So it's funny because the whole time throughout that sonnet you have to have that twist in your mind that's coming at the end, right? So there's all these things, this is all that time does, and there's nothing you can do to stop it, save breed. To brave him when he takes you. When you're dead, your offspring will still be alive. Now the other thing I realized that we haven't talked about when you started that line, what do you notice about that first line? In terms of the iambic, in terms of the syllable content. Is there how many syllables are in each of those words?
One each?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So that whole, the first monosyllabic word is the word hideous. And so something else to look for, and this applies for sonnets or Shakespeare's plays, just any time he's using iambic pentameter, is you want to look at the syllabic content, because when dealing with the iambic pentameter, anytime that you have 3 or more monosyllabic words, you're almost free to do whatever you want with the meter. Now, I shouldn't really say it like that, but it requires something else. So in a lot of you can go, when I do count the clock that tells the time. When I do count the clock that tells the time and see the brave day sunk in hideous night. Okay, whatever. But so there's different things. You can give equal emphasis to multiple words, right? When I do count the clock that tells the time and see the brave day sunk in hideous night. So there you go, brave day sunk, right? That's 3 words all being emphasized. When I do count the clock that tells the time and see the brave day sunk in hideous night. So you want to look for, because it's interesting when you watch actors perform Shakespeare and they get to parts where you're just like, what are they saying? I can't quite follow, and they sound like they're being tripped up by the words. Usually what they're being tripped up by is monosyllabic words. Almost every single time. Because it's navigating through those, it's almost like in a piece of music where you've just got 3 notes repeated. It's the same note or something, and you can't just kind of keep singing the same note over and over again.
Right.
You got to actually do something with it. And it's interesting. Some of these sonnets, and they're usually the more monosyllabic words there are, the more emotional commitment is required. So he'll have some of these sonnets that are these really like dark and powerful sonnets, and it's almost the whole sonnet bar 20 words are all monosyllabic. I'll have to try and find some of them and send them out later. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing to look for and to think about and that's like when I start looking at a sonnet or even a monologue or any piece of Shakespeare, the first thing I'll do is I'll go and mark out the meter on it. And you just mark it out as it would, just how it would be in terms of the dump, the dump, the dump, the dump, the dump. And then you want to go and look for, okay, where are there more than 3 monosyllabic or 3 or more monosyllabic words in a row? And I'll mark them out. I'll put little brackets around them. So that when I go back and look at that sonnet, I'm always aware, okay, yep, now I'm dealing with these 3 monosyllabic words, or these 5 of them, or 10 of them in a row.
Right.
And then, of course, you want to look for places where he's breaking the meter, and that usually happens on the first word of a line. So you want to think about, okay, is this, like in that example, so line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, line 8, born on the bier. Born on the bier with white and bristly beard. You wouldn't say born on the bier. And summer's green all girded up in sheaves, born on the bier with white and bristly beard. It's born is the important word. So there he's breaking the meter. And when that happens, so instead of it going born on the bier, you would reverse it, so it's I can't born on the bier. So it's dump da da dump da dump da dump da dump. So it just gets off rhythm for that first part of the line and then jumps back on.
Right.
Anyway, they're all things. There's probably a lot to throw at people, but.
Can we also use the YouTube channel you have, Speak Me a Speech?
Mm-hmm.
Are some of these done there?
Some of these sonnets, yeah. Actually, this sonnet Job did.
Oh.
And there's a recording of it on that YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one, it's similar to these other ones, right, in terms of time. So when I count the clock that tells the time and see the brave day, it's the brave day, sunk in hideous night. There's a lot of counterpoint in these, right? It's a brave day, hideous night. When I behold the violet, past prime, so it's past its prime, it's not so beautiful anymore. Sable curls, all silvered all with white, so, it's like hair that's gone grey. When lofty trees, these big, beautiful, lofty trees, I see barren of leaves because they're dead, which erst from heat did canopy the herd. So at one point there was these massive, lofty trees, and they provided the shade for these, herds of cattle or whatever. And now it's barren of leaves. And summer's green, all girded up in sheaves. So sheaves would be like your sheaves of, almost like a little hay, not really a hay bale, but, it's your, let me look. The other thing is always have a dictionary when working on Shakespeare. Oh, hold on. Sheave. Where's my... This Onion, C.T. Onion's book is one of the best glossaries to have. So exactly as a sheave. make corn into sheaves. They reap, must sheaf and bind. So yeah, I think it's like a little bundle of wheat. Oh yeah. I don't have a way to share an image, but yeah, if you look up sheaves, you'll see it's like a little bundle of wheat. So it's the, summer's green, whether it be a field of wheat or whatnot, right? It's all girded up in sheaves. It's all being cut, and it's dead, and it's been binded up. Born on the beer. Now a beer, it's not the drink.
Isn't that a coffin?
Actually, I think you might be right. Is it a coffin, or is it the thing that would carry a coffin?
It has to do with the coffin. It can be just the hole you're in, or French you say rest in the beer.
Oh, really? Huh. Yeah, so it's either the coffin or like the, if you think of a carriage that would be carrying the coffin. So it's those sheaves of wheat or grass, right, and now loaded up onto this beer, onto this carriage. So they're being born, carried on the beer with white and bristly beard. So the white and bristly beard is the little heads of the wheat, the little bristles of the wheat. So it's like he's seeing all of these things, right? So when I count the clock, when I hold the violet, these lofty trees that I see are dead, and when I see these sheaves being carried on this carriage with their little white and bristly beards, then it makes me question, then of thy beauty do I question make, that you and your beauty among the wastes of time must go. And then this is an interesting line. Since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake. Which I think is interesting, because he's saying that they forsake themselves. Now, whether that's just referring to, I guess, a question of time, but he's saying since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake and die as fast, they die as quickly as others grow. And then, it comes back to this last line again. And nothing against time's sight sith can make defense, save breed. Which is kind of hilarious, because you would not be expecting that to come out. It's like all these really dreadful things, and it's like, go have children. Save breed, to brave him when he takes thee hence.
Well, maybe you can compare that with other parts where the way he's going to trick time is with his writing. So not just having babies, but writing it down. So I think the Sonnet 19 there's another one that's finished. 65.
65.
When he refers to black ink.
Mm-hmm.
And 19, my love shall in my verse ever live young.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, he does in some other places talk about like the children of the mind as well. So also this idea of giving birth to new ideas. Did someone want to try reading that one again, or do we want to look at another one?
We can look at the next one, I think.
Okay.
If nobody wants to read it again.
Yeah, give it the other one.
Give it a whirl there.
So I'll read 19.
Sure.
Okay. Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad in sorry seasons as thou fleets, and do whatever thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy course untainted do allow, beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse ever live young.
Now, I think we're going to need a little bit more from you, JP, on that first word of the sonnet.
Devouring?
Yeah, you can't just be like devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paw.
Yeah, I was actually trying to get this Iambic pentameter, but I just failed.
Actually, let's try that. You want to read you want to try reading the whole thing just in Iambic?
Well, I just did try.
Oh, just try and emphasize it. So just really stick with the rim. Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws. Just completely overemphasize it. Don't worry about the trying to give the sense of it. Just go strictly with the rhythm.
Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet blood. Pluck thee keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws.
Oh, you see what happened on that line?
Yeah, they're all monosyllabic, I think.
And what happened is you gave pluck the emphasis, whereas the rhythm is dumb. So pluck the keen teeth.
Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets. Oop, that was weird. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets. Okay.
That's it.
And do whate'er thou wilt, swift-footed time. To thee, wide world, and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines therewith thine antique pen. Him in thy course untainted do allow, for beauty's patterns do succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse ever live young.
Ever live young.
Ever. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because you start to notice things like Avneet, you pointed out. Yeah, that other thing with that third line is it's all monosyllabic. And then the other thing, JP, like when you get to that O carve not, that again, that's a whole monosyllabic line, but it's also got this O, which you have to figure out how to deal with.
He breaks the rhythm there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with pluck, right? Because you wouldn't say pluck the keen teeth. You'd say pluck. Just like make glad and sorry seasons. We need to hear the word make because it's a You're telling someone, make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets.
Right.
So yeah, you're always, working on the sonnets or any of Shakespeare and memorizing it and preparing to present it. You always want to come back to the iambic. So you go and you memorize it, you do a whole lot of work on it, and then you come back and you go through it on just pure iambic pentameter, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that before, and then you just always keep coming back to it, and it always kind of blows your mind, the things that you begin to see. And so with this, we've found there a few places where you've got these monosyllabic series. And burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. So there, the only word that's polysyllabic is phoenix. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleetst. Fleets is single syllable.
Mm-hmm.
And do whate'er thou wilt swift-footed time. To the wide world and all her fading sweet. So it's only fading. But I forbid the one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy course untainted do allow for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst old time despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse ever live young. And it's fun. So you can go through and you can read a sonnet in, just that pure iambic, just like you did, JP. Really overemphasize the rhythm of it. And then you can go through and you can read a sonnet where you're just giving emphasis to the words that are polysyllabic. So you want to go through and become really conscious of, what's monosyllabic versus what's polysyllabic. Because in the case of this sonnet, there are so many lines where there's only one word or two words that, are polysyllabic. And in that case, like in that rhyming couplet there, it's just despite and ever. And they're really, really important words. Right? You can do, it's almost like he's pleading with time. Oh, time, you can destroy everything else, but I forbid thee one most heinous crime. And then he says, you know what, time? Whatever. Do your worst. Have at it. Because despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse, then not just my love shall in my verse live young, my love shall in my verse ever live young. Right? Despite of you. So it's also a way to find what the things are that Shakespeare is putting emphasis on. He's telling you, hey, this is important. This is my meaning here. You want to try reading it again, JP, like just from a standpoint as though you would present it? And you can't lack time. You're calling him devouring time, so.
So just try to read it to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Devouring time, blunt thou the line's pause, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood.
Brood.
Brood? It's brood?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought we were supposed to run with blood, but I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true, but blood. This is where what they call original pronunciation comes in, where they've done all this work to figure out how things would have originally been pronounced. So yeah, it might be.
Anyway, just say brood and blood.
Blood. Blood. It's probably blood. Brood and blood.
Actually, it's probably somewhere between slanted rhymes.
Alright. Devouring time, blunt thou the line's pause, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Brood, sorry. Plong the keen teeth,
Sorry, you know what brood? Do we know what brood? Are people conscious of what that is?
Like
No, I don't.
children, like, you know, or like produce, or
Yeah, you're right. Your children, your offspring, the things that you've produced.
yeah.
So devouring time. And he uses the word devour twice, right? Devouring time. You don't like time. You're going to start, it's got to, devouring time, and then blunt. Blunt, actually, devouring time, blunt thou, the lion's paws. Devouring time, blunt thou, the lion's paws. Blunt is actually breaking the rhythm there. Devouring time, blunt thou. It would usually fall on thou, but we need to hear blunt. So straight off in that first line, he's breaking the rhythm, and you can do it because you've got this monosyllabic series there. Blunt thou the. So devouring time. It's like the other sonnet where he says no time. You've got to get time's attention to begin with. You're talking to time here. You know, like, hey, time, can I talk to you? No, it's like, devouring time, I hate your guts, you know. Devouring time, and then you're just saying, you blunt thou the lion's paw, pluck the keen teeth, make glad and sorry seasons, do all this. But I'm going to forbid you from this one thing.
I don't get what he means, that that devouring time blunt thou the lion's paw and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. What does he mean? Make the earth devour her own sweet brood?
Well, I think it's the same sense of time creating and time destroying. So it's time that is causing Earth to destroy her own creation. Right? So make the earth devour her own sweet brood. So, you know, you can think of like in the other sonnets where he's talking about brass, no stone, no earth, no boundless sea. Or just these creations, like in the other one where he said, or was it the hand, those hours that with gentle work did frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell, will play the tyrant to the very same. So it's this idea that, time had the earth create these things, but now time is making earth devour the things that she's created.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Anyways, go again, JP.
Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleetst, and do whatever thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy course unattained do allow, for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse ever live young.
Yeah, the thing with that is you got to make sure like you're driving through right to the end, because that quatrain is like the most important. I mean, not the quatrain, the couplet. So that's your final statement to time, and it just kind of petered out there.
Right.
But it's interesting because in this, it's like he's, like in these other ones where it builds, right? When, then. In this, it's like, do this, blunt the lion's paws, pluck the keen teeth, make glad and sorry seasons, but, and then it's the shift, right? But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. And here's what I'm going to forbid you from. And then it switches on the couplets. Like, you know what? You're not going to listen to me. So go ahead and do thy worst, because despite you, I'm going to win. Anyways, fun sonnets. Do we want to read another one?
Yes.
Sure.
Which one?
I think we should do
Can we read
115.
Yeah, 115.
All right.
Well, which one did you want to do?
Yeah, the same 115.
Okay. We should do it. Do you want to read it or?
Oh, no, you should read it.
Okay, because I'm going to do it once, emphasizing the iambic,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to do it again, emphasizing just the polysyllabic.
Great.
You hear the difference.
Great.
Okay. Those lines that I before have writ do lie, even those that said I could not love you dearer.
Now there's a line that even is a bit of a problem, right? So is it even as a single syllable or even as to even? Even or even?
Mm-hmm.
Now, because we're dealing with a sonnet and it's usually pretty strict iambic, I would say it's even as a single syllable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So just try it again.
Okay. Those lines that I before have writ do lie, in those that said I could not love you dearer. Yet then my judgment knew no reason why my most full flame should afterwards burn clearer. Makes much more sense. But reckoning time whose millioned accidents.
Again, so now which
Try that
which
one more
yeah,
time.
which word?
Yeah. But reckoning time millioned accidents creep in twixt vows and decrees of kings, tan sacred beauty blunt the sharpest intents.
Sharpst. There's no
Sharpst.
E. Yeah, he drops the E there.
Tan sacred beauty blunt the sharpest intents. Divert strong minds to the course of all.
That's an interesting one.
The altering things. Is that right? Divert strong minds to the course altering things. I'm skipping the of altogether.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the original, but I'd say it'd probably be the course of altering things. Instead of to the. Divert strong minds to the course of altering things, but that's tough.
Okay. Divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny? Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny? Might I not then say now, I love you best, when I was certain or in certainty, crowning the present doubt. Crowning the present doubting of.
Crowning.
Crowning. Present.
Dumb.
Rest. Crowning the present doubting of the rest. Crowning the present doubting of the rest. Love is a babe, then might I not say so, to give full growth to that which still doth grow. That's a tricky one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So now I'll try it again, just emphasizing the polysyllabic.
Yeah, so give the... we've done this before, right? So equal emphasis to all the monosyllabics, and then an inflection on the polysyllabics.
Right. Those lines that I before have writ do lie. Even, or we said it was going to be even.
Yeah.
Even those that said I could not love you dearer. Yet then by judgment knew no reason why my most full flame should afterwards burn clearer. But reckoning time whose millionth accidents creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings, and sacred beauty blunt the sharpest intents, divert strong minds to the course. Divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny, might I not then say, now I love you best, when I was certain or in certainty, grounding the present, doubting of the rest. Love is a babe, then might I say so. Love is a babe, then might I not say so, to give full growth to that which still doth grow. Those last two lines are all monosyllabic.
So interesting when you do the sonnet like that. Because then you hear, oh, before, and then he says, afterwards, burn clearer. You're like, oh, hadn't noticed the before and afterwards previously. But, yeah, you just hear these. And even particularly in this creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings, tan sacred beauty, blunt the sharp's intents, divert strong minds to the course of altering things. It's just, yeah, you just hear these, you hear different music when you start to play with it that way. And then like this, when I was certain, or in certainty, crowning the present, doubting of the rest. Just you see these polysyllabic words. There's a lot of monosyllabic in that sonnet. Avneet and JP, did you guys have any observations? Or could you hear it sounded completely different to just doing the iambic?
Yeah. No thoughts. I'm still new to it. It's very interesting.
So Dash,
so you can hear like those different. Yeah.
No, go. What were you saying?
You can hear. Well, I was saying it's like once you start to hear these different qualities, when you do the strict iambic, you kind of define how the rhythm will shape the way you say the words. And then just emphasize the polysyllabic, you start to hear the musical things come out. So you can start to put those two together to get a better sense of how it works as a poem. Give me 1 second, I just want to read it through on my own just to...
Sure.
Okay. All right. Those lines that I before have writ do lie, even those that said I could not love you dearer. Yet then my judgment knew no reason why my most full flame should afterwards burn clearer. But reckoning time, whose millioned accidents creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings, and sacred beauty blunt the sharp's intents, divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Alas, why, fearing time's tyranny, might I not then say, now I love you best, when I was certain or in certainty, crowning the present, doubting of the rest? Love is a babe, then I might say so, then I might not say so, to give full growth to that which still does grow. Ah, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah, it's very interesting because there's a lot, like, even though the sonnet, right, he's talking about reckoning time and time's tyranny, but the whole sonnet is about time. It's things that he has done in time, right?
Right.
So, and I think it's crucial because you've got this before and this afterwards, but then you've got several uses of then. Right, so he's saying, those lines that I before hath writ do lie, even those that said I could not love you dearer. Yet then, so what's the then that he's referring to? So he's saying, yet then. So the then refers to some point in time. So what point in time is he talking about?
The times when the previous sonnets or the previous times he wrote.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so he's referring back to that, those lines that I before hath writ do lie. So he's saying yet then, so when I was writing those lines that I'm now telling you are a lie, yet then, at that point in time, my judgment knew no reason why my most full flame should afterwards burn clear or burn even fuller. Right, so at that point in time when I was writing those lines, when I told you I loved you and could not love you dearer, it's all a lie. But reckoning time, whose million accidents creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings, right? Change decrees of kings, tan sacred beauty, blunt the sharp's intents, divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Alas, why, fearing of time's tyranny, might I not then say, again, he's referring to then.
Yeah.
Right? Referring back to those lines that he wrote before. Why might I not then previously say, now I love you best? Because at that point in time, when I was certain or in certainty, crowning the present, doubting of the rest. So I guess, in fear of the way that time changes people's vows and commitments and blunts their intents, so I've said, now I love you best. And I was crowning the present and doubting of the future, I guess, doubting of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But love is a babe, then might I not say so, to give full growth to that which still doth grow. Fascinating sonnet.
Yeah. And while time blunts everything else except my love, which actually grows stronger.
Yep. Yep. Let me just ask, where are there inversions, or the where he's breaking the iambic? I guess should call them inversions on the on the first lines. Can you guys point out some of the inversions?
Is it the even those? Even those. That's it.
Yeah, you could use that. Yep.
I wouldn't say even those. I would say even those.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, because he's saying, like, obviously he's written lots of lines, right? So he's saying, and they lie, even the ones that, even the lines that say I can't love you, dear. So yeah, definitely you need it, the even. Where else?
Would it be reckoning time? Reckoning.
Well, the emphasis would be on anyway, but reckoning time. Reckoning time. So that's already on the emphasis. So if we just look at the first words of every line, right? Because it's the dumb, so they're unstressed.
Yeah.
How about creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings?
So you're saying creep would be an inversion?
Creep in twixt vows, yeah.
Yeah, you'd say creep, yeah. Whose million accidents creep in. Creep in. Whose million accidents creep in twixt vows. No, it's creep in. They don't creep in, they creep in.
Divert, strong lines. That.
Would you say divert or would you say divert?
Divert.
So the emphasis on the second syllable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So no, that's not an inversion because it's already.
Yeah.
Yep. What did you say, Dash?
Ten sacred beauty is sharpest intense.
Yeah, we definitely need to hear that word tan.
Yep. Ten sacred beauty.
Tan sacred beauty. Yep.
Ten sacred beauty blunt the sharpest intense. Divert strong minds. Course.
And that one's tough because you'd almost want to give tan sacred beauty all emphasis. Tan, but you definitely need it. It's like, it's tan sacred beauty. Creep in twixt vows and change decrees of kings. Tan sacred beauty. Blunt. Tan sacred beauty. Blunt's on the emphasis anyway. Blunt the sharp's intense. Divert strong minds to the course of altering things. Yep. Definitely tan. JP, is there any more in the rest of the sonnet?
Fearing.
JP just...
Oh, he's not there. Okay.
Yeah, he's not there.
Fearing. Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny?
Well, fear is on the stress already.
Is it?
Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Would it be like, might I think the emphasis would be on the I, but the next line, when I was certain, with the when, the emphasis should be on when.
Alas, why fearing of time's tyranny might I not? Might I not then say? See, I would actually go for not. I wouldn't say, I would... In general, you tend to stay away from the I's.
Okay.
But more so in that part right there, it's not really an inversion, but it's five mono. Well, it's the whole line is monosyllabic actually.
Right.
So you would actually want to emphasize multiple things there, I think, to get the point across. So, alas, why fearing of time's tyranny might I not then say? So you can, might I not? In that case, you're kind of giving them all an emphasis. Might I not then say, now I love you best? Might I not then say now? So now already falls on it. Might I not? Not doesn't, right? Might I not then say? But I think we need the word not. But yeah, it's falling inside that monosyllabic series, so you have the freedom to give it the emphasis.
Okay.
So it's not a strict inversion, but it's definitely somewhere that you have to figure out how you're gonna give the sense. And it's similar on the when I was. Now I love you best. When? You wouldn't really emphasize when? Might I not then say, now I love you best? When I was, I think it'd go more towards certain. When I was certain. When I was certain, might I not then say, now I love you best? When I was certain. Again, I mean, the other thing you deal with this, it also depends on what you choose to emphasize in the line before is going to affect what you can do with the next line.
Right.
Okay. But again, when I was, it's monosyllabic. So you have a certain amount of freedom. So about these last three lines.
Crowning. The present. You would say crowning.
Definitely.
Crowning.
Crowning the present.
What's a ning?
You crowned Ning? Yeah, crowning the present.
Crowning the present. Present.
Crowning the present. Yeah, present.
Crowning. Present. You see, it's kind of funny because if you do emphasize crowning the present, it kind of gives it this. It dips and then rises. That whole first phrase dips and then rises. Crowning the present, doubting of the rest.
Yeah, and you got to really use that doubting again too. Crowning the present, doubting of the rest.
Crowning the present, doubting of the rest. Yeah, just like you wouldn't say crowning, you wouldn't say doubting.
Mm-hmm.
Crowning the present, doubting of the rest. That's some great music. Love is a babe. And then the last are all monosyllabic, so.
Yep. And obviously love, you would want to...
Right.
Love is a babe. What's a babe? What is? Love is a babe.
Love!
And that's where the monosyllabic's really right, because love is a babe. And when you give words equal emphasis, you can get so much more like emotional connection to them. You just kind of, yeah, love is a babe. Love is a babe. Love is a babe. What? Love is a babe.
Love is a babe!
Then might I not say so? What is he saying so? He's saying that love is meant. Then might I not? Oh, I guess he's referring back to that previous. Then might I not say so?
Yeah.
It's referring back to those original lines, in a sense, justifying the fact that I didn't really lie.
Yeah.
Then might I not say that? Then might I not have told you previously that I could not love you dearer? To give full growth to that which still doth grow.
These question marks, do we read them as a question, or what do we do with these question marks?
Ignore them.
Ignore them.
Ignore most punctuation. I don't know. It's difficult. I know that Robert, his view in all of this stuff is, in a sense, you want to ignore most punctuation, because for the most part, all the punctuation in these sonnets is not Shakespeare's anyway. They get changed so much based on who's editing and who's publishing the version. And there is a copy of the original 1611 sonnets as they were published in 1611.
Without his permission.
Without his permission.
Yeah.
And, still it's a question, well, was it Shakespeare's original punctuation?
Right.
But when you're looking at it from the standpoint of actually, presenting the sonnet and owning it as your own thoughts, right, where you're putting yourself into the shoes of Shakespeare who's written these,
Right.
or the character that he's having speak these lines, you have to create your own punctuation. You have to, and actually one thing that Roberts played, I know the last play that he did, it wasn't a play, it was a, he had to read the lines, I think it was. I think because, I don't know whether he was called in at like a last minute to kind of fill in for someone else or what, but I think it was like a reading of a play that they were doing, but most people were reading from memory, in a sense, but he had only just been given the lines, so he was reading from a script. But the one thing that he was telling me about that he'd done is he'd gone through and played with all the possible variations of punctuation, so that he knew where he could take a breath, right? Because you want to equate your punctuation with your breathing points and your, dramatic suspensions and things like that. So yeah, definitely don't just go with a punctuation because it's on the page.
Okay.
You have to come up with a reason in your, yeah, you have to, because you're trying to own these thoughts as yours, you have to come up with a reason to punctuate it where you do, for it to make sense. So, because I don't know whether they're really question. I mean, it is a question because he's saying, alas, why, fearing of time's tyranny, might I not then say, now I love you best? When I was certain or in certainty, crowning the present, doubting of the rest. So it is a question. But a lot of people think that because there's a question mark, you have to say why. Like you have to have this weird upward inflection.
Right.
That you can't finish a question with a downward inflection. Then might I not say so? It is a question. Then might I not say so, to give full growth to that which still doth grow. So it is a question. But you don't have to give it the typical inflection of a question.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. We lost Dash.
Oh no. Well, I think we're going to have to end here anyway.
Yep. Now this was fun.
Yeah. I think we should do another week of sonnets next week.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to memorize one.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll pick one, see what I can do with it.
Yes, pick one that you like that kind of strikes you in some way. And, yeah, go for memorizing it.
Okay.
And I find it useful when memorizing or when learning a new piece. I always find it extremely useful to copy it out on a piece of paper, handwriting it out.
Right.
And I think part of why I do that is just because sometimes when we read, we overlook things.
Yeah.
And then we memorize things wrong.
Right.
And we miss words. So I think part of my thing is I always like to copy something out. And because it takes longer to write something than it does to speak it, it also just gives you that little bit more time to sink in what the actual words are, I think. Anyways. Oh, he's back.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're just saying we're gonna have to stop here, but we'll do some more sonnets next week. And Avneet said she's gonna try and memorize a sonnet. And yep. And we'll go for it.
Yeah, these are some good sonnets to work on.
They are. They're awesome. And we didn't even look in depth at half of these. So maybe next week, yeah, we can, if people have them memorized, we can look at the ones that are memorized and then also look at the ones we didn't look at in any depth.
My Shakespeare app also plays the sonnets, like it has an audio file.
Yeah, I've listened to some of them.
Are they good?
Not really.
Okay.
They're okay. I mean, a lot of these sonnets are just, they're, a lot of times, like for example, there's an app from this, I can't remember who made the app, but there's the same guys that made this Beethoven app, and they made a Da Vinci app, and there's a sonnet app, and they've, it's really well put together app. It's very nice. They've got video recordings of all of the different sonnets, and they got really awesome videography and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the sonnets, these actors are just reading them off a teleprompter.
Oh.
And obviously the ones that are read off a teleprompter, they just don't move you.
Right.
But then there are some really good ones that are, where these actors have them memorized and they own the sonnet, and you're like, wow, that was really good. So in a lot of cases, and I think it's the case with this sonnet app, is it's read, and it's not bad, but it's just, there's just so much more they could get out of the sonnet if they actually... One just memorized it and owned it. So it's, it's not super bad, but yeah, it's not great. I've listened to a few of them and went, yeah, I'll turn you off.
Yeah. There's also that episode of Playing Shakespeare where they go through the Iambic.
Yeah.
I can't remember which episode it is.
And they do some sonnet work.
But
do you remember which? If you remember the episode, send it to me.
Yeah, I'll find it, because I found that they were all on YouTube.
They are, yeah.
So I can find it and share it.
But
Oh, they are all on YouTube.
Yeah, they are now. They're all copyrighted. I don't know how long they'll stay on YouTube, but it looks like they've been there since December 2012.
Yeah.
So.
I lost my flash drive with all the plain Shakespeare
Oh no.
videos. So I'll have to.
I have the files. Maybe when I see you next, we can share.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You can download them from YouTube too.
I'll have to get a new. Yeah. Well, those video files are pretty big, so I need to get a sizable flash drive that can hold on. Anyway. So I think it's episode 2 or 3 or something like that.
Hey, Dash, you know what? Kurt may have them.
Joanne, you'll probably remember that.
Yeah, I think it's episode 2, using the verse.
Oh.
I'm just trying to see whether they do the sonnets in that.
But just for Dash, I don't know why
Yes,
I think Kurt may have them.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's that Ben Crystal presentation, which Joanne, I think, sent out to everybody.
Yeah, he's got some basic stuff on the Iambic. His book, I'll have to go back and find it, but in that Shakespeare on Toast, he actually has some interesting breakdown of the Iambic, which is, I know when I read it at the time, I thought, oh, this is probably the first, having someone actually setting it down on paper and explaining what it is. That was probably the best thing I'd seen.
Okay.
In terms of just explaining what the hell Iambic pentameter is. But, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't go into super detail, but, yeah, just the general idea of the iambs and stuff, so.
Well, I have to go run now.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you all next week.
Okay, bye.
Tell JP we said bye. Bye. Oh, there he is. All right. See you later.